Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yes, my friends, this is the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast, and I am your host, Rev Recluse, and welcome to the new podcast. And this is one that I've wanted to do, this particular podcast. One that I've wanted to do just since I started the podcast, really. Danny Hooper is a very well-known gentleman here in the Edmonton area and in Alberta as a fundraiser, an auctioneer. He was a DJ for a while at CFCW. I think he still has a column for the Edmonton Sun as well. He's got a lot of his hands in a lot of different things here in his career. He's very well known, very successful, and a very generous gentleman with his fundraising sideline. And the one thing that people have kind of lost on the shuffle, I think, over the years, especially the people who haven't been in Edmonton that long anyway, is the fact that Danny started out as a country singer and was a very successful and very well-known country singer in the 70s and the 80s. And I wanted to spotlight Danny's first two records that I found I think it was in June, in a Red Deer trip in a huge, gigantic pawn shop on I can't remember the name of the street, but it's downtown Red Deer, with thousands upon thousands of albums. And Danny's first two records were the ones that I picked up pretty quickly into that search. So I wanted to do a spotlight on Danny, since I've known Danny for as long as I've been in Edmonton, which is going to be 15 years now. And I think he's very well deserving of it. So the first record that I want to spotlight is a record that I found on a road trip, the Red Deer, along with the second record that I'm going to spotlight today. This was passed, I think, in June. Went to this gigantic pawn shop in the middle of Red Deer, downtown Red Deer. Very, very nice gentleman let me pour through his thousands upon thousands of albums. And the first two records that I found of Danny's are the ones I'm going to be playing for you on this podcast. So the first one that I found, released in 1975 on the Royalty record label, produced by R. Harlan Smith, who is a legend and will be featured in upcoming podcasts, and engineered by Joe Kozak. There's that name again that you'll be hearing a lot of and have heard in the past. This is an album called Just a Part of Losing You. And the song that I'm going to play for you is the title track written by Danny, which is a song called Just a Part of Losing You, here on the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast. I'll talk a little bit about it after we play it. So here it is, Danny Hooper, Just a Part of Losing You, on the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast.
This lonely bed, the sun is coming up. I wonder if you're lying in a bed with some you love. I'm lying in a world that's filled with emptiness and gloom, and I guess it's just a part of losing you. Teardrops flowing down my cheeks like raindrops in the street. Shaky hands and a lumpy throat that keep me from my sleep. Nothing but the memories of things we used to do. And I guess it's just a part of losing you. Losing you meant losing somebody to hold me tight. Losing you meant more than losing just a loving wife to have, to hold, to mean something to. My mouth tastes like whiskey and my head still feels the pain. Everybody's telling me that I'm just not the same. Nights are just a lot of time for nothing much to do. And I guess it's just a part of losing you. Losing you meant losing somebody to hold me tight. Losing you meant more than losing just a loving wife to have, to hold, to mean something to.
Welcome back to the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast. That was Danny Hooper with the title track off his first LP called Just a Part of Losing You, written by Danny himself. It had a little bit of a Jimmy Buffett thing going on there, which would not have been uncommon in the mid-'70s. Jimmy was very, very big at that time. I think Margaritaville came out around that same time. So I could see the resemblance and the musicianship in the song itself, which was a very, very good song. And the thing about Danny's stuff in the 70s and the 80s, that Danny played relentlessly around Western Canada, certainly in Alberta and in Edmonton and in the North. And he played what I would call Western swing music, at least in the beginning, moving on to the more not traditional, I guess, but more modern, I guess you would call country music that was really exploding thanks to Urban Cowboy in 1980, I believe, 80, 81. But this was more of a Western swing. Would not be out of place on the Grand Ole Opry, I think. But like I said, it had a little bit of that color to it. So the next one that I want to play for you is my favorite off the album. This is a song called The Last Bull Ride, also written by Danny, which is a little bit of a concept song, and I'm going to let Danny talk about it more. Again, this is my favorite song off the album. This is written by Danny himself. This is a song called The Last Bull Ride here on the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast.
2 months of bad luck and 14 wild bulls I couldn't ride. When a rodeo cowboy is losing, he can't stay alive. You followed me to rodeos, barrooms, and hospital beds. Well, I know that you're weary and wanting to lay down your head. Well, I'm a rootin', tootin', whiskey-drinking cowboy with a girl who cannot stand to see them wild Brahma bulls get the best of her rodeo man. I am the kind of a fellow who simply refuses to see that the rodeo is hurting my girl more than it ever hurt me. I broke my arm down in Houston, my leg out in old San Antonio. I broke my shoulder in Denver, down near my neck in El Cajon. Yes, I've taken my share from them bulls who have broken my bones. And now, Lord, it looks like they're trying to break up my home. 'Cause I'm a rootin', tootin', whiskey-drinking cowboy with a girl who cannot stand to see them wild Brahma bulls get the best of her rodeo man. I am the kind of a fellow who simply refuses to see that the rodeo is hurting my girl more than it ever hurt me. Well, the gate man is ready, this bull is wanting to buck. 8 seconds from now we will know if I've had a change of luck. Wipe those tears away, honey, the guys think it's dumb when you cry, because you're looking at a cowboy who's going on his final bull ride. I was a rootin', tootin', whiskey-drinking cowboy with a wife who could not stand to see them wild Brahma bulls get the best of her rodeo man.
Welcome back to the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast. That was Danny Hooper with a song called The Last Bull Ride from his first LP called Just a Part of Losing You. Now, the other LP that I'm going to spotlight here today on Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast is an album called Touching You that was released in 1979. And it's an interesting album because of the people who play on it, which was really the cream of the crop of the Edmonton session studio music scene in 1979. A lot of people that, again, will come up and have come up already on the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast on certain episodes in the future and in the past, especially people like Mavis McCauley and the members of One Horse Blue, which also played on this record. A lot of people like that, they will come up. It was a very close-knit group. A lot of the musicians played on each other's records, and this is certainly no different. And it's very, very more polished, I guess. Has more of a sheen to it than the first record did, and you'll see it in the two songs I'm going to play for you. The first one is called Rena's Bedroom, and the thing about Danny's songwriting that I think gets overlooked a lot is that he had a lot of depth to his lyrics. It wasn't just the cliched country phrases that kind of get worn over and over and over and over again in a lot of songs, both and again in the past and in the present. And to his credit, Danny didn't fall for that cliched that songwriting that he would hear out of a lot of other people, in his contemporaries and now even. So this is one of his songs that I really like off this album. And again, it has a little bit more depth than you would normally associate with this kind of country music, especially in 1979. So to his credit. So this is Danny Hooper with his backing band, Country Spunk, with a song called Rena's Bedroom here on the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast.
It's a long, long way from here to Rena's bedroom. I'm so many miles from where I want to be. But tonight I'll spend the night in Rena's bedroom. 'Cause there's a girl in Rena's bedroom who'll spend the night with me. I couldn't sleep last night, I kept on thinking about how bad she wanted me to stay. What a fool I was to think I didn't need her. I hope she's home when I get there today. What a fool I was to think I didn't need her. I'm sick and tired of freezing to the bones. This chain of broken dreams is mine forever. I'm packing up my bags and rambling home. It's a long, long way from here to Rena's bedroom. I'm so many miles from where I want to be. But tonight I'll spend the night in Rena's bedroom. 'Cause there's a girl in Rena's bedroom who'll spend the night with me.
Welcome back to the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast. That was Danny Hooper with a song called Rena's Bedroom off his LP called Touching You from 1979. Now, the final song I want to play for you on the podcast is probably my favorite Danny Hooper song. This is a song called Fathers Hide Your Daughters, which is a very rip-roaring, boots on the dance floor, pumping fist kind of a song. Predates bro country, but certainly has that bro country vibe to it. Very of its time in 1979 also, which had the urban cowboy movie and the country music exploding in the United States and Canada too. So maybe his most rocking song or his most upbeat song. This is Danny Hooper with a song called Father, Hide Your Daughters here on the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast.
Fathers, hide your daughters, 'cause the boys are back in town. And this time, we're here on business. This time we ain't here to fool around. Well, we've been working out in the country, saving our nickels and our dimes for a moment just like this one. Now the boys are ready to unwind. And I said, fathers, hide your daughters, 'cause the boys are back in town. And this time, we're here on business. This time we ain't here to fool around. Well, there ain't nothing like a lady to help a fella ease his mind when he's been working his butt off, saving his lovin' all the time. And I said, fathers, hide your daughters, 'cause the boys are back in town. And this time, we're here on business. This time we ain't here to fool around. I said, fathers, hide your daughters, 'cause the boys are back in town. And this time, we're here on business. This time we ain't here. This time we ain't here. This time we ain't here to fool around. Fathers, hide your daughters, 'cause the boys are back in town. And this time, we're here on business. This time we ain't here to fool around.
Welcome back to the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast. That was Danny Hooper with a song called Father, Hide Your Daughters from the LP called Touching You in 1979. And again, with Danny's stuff, I think the fact that he has his hand in a lot of different things in his life, between the fundraising and the auctioneering and the columns for the Sun, the fact he was a DJ on CFCW for a while. He has a lot of things going on in his life. He's a very busy guy. The fact that he was a very well-known and a very successful country singer in the 70s, 80s kind of gets lost in the ensuing years, and me not being from Edmonton and not being born in Edmonton and was not around during that time frame, looking at it through fresh eyes is it's a big joy for me. And I really enjoy digging into Danny's his LPs from that time in the 70s and the 80s, and I probably will have a couple more Danny LPs showing up on future Vintage Edmonton Music podcasts. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I will have a whole bunch of Danny Hooper links on where you can buy Danny Hooper records and find out more about Danny himself and his music career on the post for this podcast. So look for that as well. So next podcast, I think I have a couple things going on, but I think it's going to be the Gabe and Peter podcast that I've been waiting to do. And I say this so often with the Vintage Edmonton stuff. I love so much of the Vintage Edmonton stuff. My favorite LPs, my favorite collection of LPs, and favorite act, musical and otherwise, I think it's Gabe and Peter. This is going to be great. This is going to be old school 1970s Ukrainian humor, burlesque humor, a little off color, but nonetheless, this is fantastic stuff. So I hope you enjoy this one. It's probably going to be coming up probably at the first week of December. We'll see how that's going to be, but I think it's going to be the first week of December. So until then, this is Rev Recluse for the Vintage Edmonton Music Podcast, and I'll see you later.